Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Man in America. I'm your host, Seth Holhouse. So what's amazing is this movement of Make America Healthy Again, because what's happening is that topics that I've been covering for years now and that you've probably been researching and studying, alternative health, alternative medicine, the dangers of the pharmaceutical industrial complex, are now becoming mainstream and everyone's talking about them. But one of the big ones that I feel like needs to get a lot more attention is the entire lie about the sun. That we've been convinced that the sun is going to kill us and give us cancer, so we got to hide from it, and that the solution is the pharmaceutical company's cream that you lather your body with that will protect you from God's creation. So here we're in this kind of psyop of what God created is going to kill you, but what man can create will save you, which doesn't really make that much sense to anybody that believes in God. And there's also been a lot of studies coming out recently that there's tons of carcinogens in sunscreen. So it's like, oh, so they tell us then the sun is going to kill you and give you cancer, so you better buy our sunscreen, but the sunscreen actually has carcinogens in it, which is going to give you skin cancer. And then you go to your doctor and like, oh, you have skin cancer, so you better wear even more sunscreen, which gives you even more cancer. And it kind of feels like a great business model if you're in the business of making people sick and treating them. So anyway, folks, today I've got my favorite returning guest talking about these issues with my good friend Jonathan Otto, talking all about sun, cancer, health, and so much more. So folks, please enjoy the show. Mr. Jonathan Otto, it's always good to have you back on, man. What an amazing time that we're living in right now. Thank you for being here.
You're welcome. And thank you, Seth, for having me on.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So there's just so much going on right now. But one of the most exciting things to me that's happening is this MAHA movement, this Make America Healthy Again, where we're now seeing an open dialogue of people discussing the things that are killing us, and also things that we thought were healthy, right? But even looking at chemtrails becoming much more of a mainstream discussion now that RFK has talked about it, the poisoning of our foods, obviously the medicines and the big pharma industrial complex, but one of the biggest things that I'm seeing it occasionally, I'll see these videos that go viral on TikTok or go viral on Twitter, is the demonization of the sun. And this is a kind of a wild one because this gets into deep because I remember at one point I discovered sun gazing and thinking like, God, sun gazing. Like I was told as a kid, never look at the sun, it'll make you go blind. Yet I'm hearing that there's people in these kind of older cultures that every morning or every evening spend, upwards of a half an hour staring into the sun. It's like there's something there. But then beyond that is just the demonization in terms of like how the sun gives you cancer. And this is the wild one. It's like what we're discovering in all these things, you're finding that the big pharma, the industrial complex, the medical schools, they tell you God's inventions give you cancer, man's inventions heal you from cancer. And that's the theme I'm seeing, right? It's like, okay, God gives you cancer, the imperfect man heals your cancer. I just don't get it. So I've got a few short clips that I'm going to play for us about the sun and about cancer. But before I play those, I'll just hand it back over to you to just kind of give your response to that.
Yeah, well, I think you nailed it. And these are the things that we really need to be aware of. When you start hearing these narratives, you start cottoning on to the fact that you got hoodwinked into a system where you believe somehow, or people got taught to believe that the earth, the world is in chaos. And I can solve that problem for you. And I've got the answer. We've got this, predatory sun and all these predatory elements of nature that we continue to find out are beneficial for us and for our microbiome, and all various different elements that we've been told about for us end up being the thing that we actually need and the thing that we're running to help our problem. That is actually causing that problem itself. And that's part of sometimes the magician's spell, and the art of the con man, where he is alluring you into that solution, saying, I've got that solution for you. But that very thing that is being introduced to you to run from the thing that you're afraid of is the very thing that causes the issue that you're trying to run from.
Exactly. Exactly. So I'm going to play, I'll just get this conversation started. I'm going to play this. Here's something that was, being shared. This is on Sudden and Unexpected, which they're referring to there. So this is a little 1 minute piece from ABC Arizona talking about sunscreen and sunlight. So I'm going to play this really quickly because this really helps set the stage for our discussion.
new research has people a little frightened to use it. There's a new study out that says after just one day, chemicals in sunscreens enter your bloodstream.
Before you grab that bottle of sunscreen, the first thing you need to do is check the ingredients on the back.
They are chemicals and they can potentially be dangerous.
Look at any bottle of sunscreen on the store shelf and it'll more than likely have one of these ingredients.
Avobenzone and oxybenzone are very commonly in your chemical sunscreens.
But a new study finds when you apply sunscreen with those chemicals, along with two other ones known as escamsol and octocrylene, they can absorb into your skin and into your bloodstream.
In more than 80%, 80% of the sunscreen products sold in the USA were now considered potentially unsafe for use. Wanting to protect our skin, but risking things like hormone disruption, skin allergies, even cancer. And on the other side, you have mineral sunscreens. And the mineral sunscreens have zinc oxide or some other mineral. And what happens is it reflects the light off of your body. So it's almost like putting a barrier on your skin. The sun's light, rays hit and then they bounce off. So just from a health standpoint, that's obviously intuitively, as they're much healthier than the chemical.
So I'll read the post here. They said sunlight increases your body's production of vitamin D, which fights cancer. Sunscreen is full of chemicals that cause cancer. Now, I've also got a different video to play here. This is a woman. I'm not sure who she is. She's doing an interview, and she's European. You can guess from her her accent, but she's talking about the difference between sunscreens in America and the difference versus Europe, which is very similar to what we've seen in you go find a box of Fruit Loops. Look at the ingredients of Fruit Loops in America versus Fruit Loops in Europe, or Doritos or anything. And what you see is like this is exactly what Trump is now talking about openly, and what he's committed to do is eliminating that crossover between people that are, say, working for Pfizer, and then the next year they're actually the head of the FDA, right? This incestuous relationship between big pharma and the regulatory agencies. But what she's saying, which is kind of wild, is that they haven't updated the regulations for what's safe in sunscreens for 20 years. So I'll play this. It's a minute 23, and then we'll dive into our discussion.
23 brands of sunscreen have been pulled from the market for cancer-causing properties. And if you think about sunscreen causing skin cancer, it just,
in the
23
US,
brands.
The law about filter in skincare hasn't changed for over 20 years. And there's like this.
What do you mean filter in skincare?
Yeah, the skincare, the filter, the sunscreen hasn't been changed. The law hasn't been changed for over.
So I'm guessing that they're more as a filter, right? You're putting some sort of filter on your body to filter the sun's light, right? I'll let her continue though.
20 years, they're still using the same filter. That's why when you come to Europe, buy your sunscreen better in Europe because they're using way more modern filters. But in general, filters in skincare is not the greatest ingredient. So if you damage your skin constantly, retinol, glycolic, acid peel, you damage. So your skin is vulnerable, it's raw. Sun even penetrates harder, you get more pigmentation, more aging, it can cause cancer, inflammation. So you do so much damage that that everybody tells you use sunscreen 24/7. Of course because you destroyed your skin practically.
Right.
So it's actually better if you strengthen your skin, make what you got the best it possibly could be, make it like away from inflammation, hydrate, nutrition, telomerase activation, exosomes.
So that's the interesting point too that she's making there, and talking about how that we've damaged our skin. Like my wife, for instance, she doesn't wear any makeup, and I love it because it's not like, oh, your makeup's not on, so I don't really recognize you anymore. She just doesn't wear makeup. One of the big reasons, because it's so damaging actually to the skin. But it's just crazy again. Like we talked about, is like we've been convinced by big pharma and the doctors and the medical industry and these regulatory agencies that like what God gave us, aka sunlight, that which brings life to everything on this whole planet, is actually a killer. It's going to cause you cancer unless you go buy a product from Johnson and Johnson or from one of these massive manufacturers that are part of the pharmaceutical industrial complex. It's so wild, but when you understand how these things work, it's like, oh yeah, it kind of makes sense that Pfizer, the ones that introduced their solution to the COVID pandemic, which was then causing a lot of things, that they're now actually investing in cancer treatments. It's like, why is Pfizer now investing in cancer treatments, like, oh, because there's turbo cancer everywhere. So anyway, I'll pass it back over to you because I
Yeah.
know that this is your wheelhouse.
Uh, well, Seth, listen, I mean, this issue of playing both sides is the genius business move for people that have zero regard for people's individual health, their family. And so you play both sides of this. You create the cause, the problem, and then you create the solution. And then the solution doesn't really work. And then so then you've still got another solution for the solution you just provided. And it is the most horrific kind of sales process imaginable. But we saw that with the vaccines, and we saw the fact that, and they were well prepared for all of this, and that this would then feed all the other industries because it's what it's been doing for so long. And, just look at that medical symbol. Everyone needs to just remember what that medical symbol is. It's a serpent, which is a sign of envenomation. And it's the act of poisoning. Remember, the Greek word for pharmacy is pharmakeia, which translates sorcerer. When you read it, for example, in Revelation, it says that your tradesmen were the great men of the earth. This is Revelation 18:23. For by thy sorceries, by thy pharmakeia were all the nations deceived. And so the mass deception, thy tradesmen were the great men of the earth, meaning they profiteered from this pharmakeia. But then you go deeper on that word. If you use like a Strong's concordance, it'll tell you that the word pharmakeia directly after sorcerer translates drug or poisoner. And so the real translation even for the word drug is poisoner. It's the act of poisoning. So as I poison you, and then you'll notice the similarity between the medical symbol and a dollar sign, because it's one and the same. Around the dollar, you've got a staff and a snake. Like you're just doing, that's just the dollar sign. But that's the act of how you can truly profiteer off people. I poison you and I sell you the solution. And it's the World Health Organization that explained directly that their symbol is not the same symbol from the book of Exodus with Moses, that this in fact is the word, is it in fact from the cult of Asclepius, which was a serpent cult, where Asclepius had people envenomated by snakes and sold the cure. That's the narrative. So it's actually a narrative telling you a mythological story that's telling you, we're poisoning you, we're selling you cures.
And so here's and this is on BibleStudyTools.com, defining pharmakeia. And which is, I think it's mentioned, it says 3 times. It says, okay, there's 4 different aspects of this definition. 1, the use or the administering of drugs. 2, poisoning. 3, sorcery, magical arts, often found in connection with idolatry and fostered by it. And 4, metaph, or I'm not sure if it's short for metaphysical or whatnot, but the deceptions and seductions of idolatry. And this is what's interesting, is that when you look at especially the COVID pandemic and the vaccines, and you look at Fauci, and you look at the idolatry of Fauci, wow, right? Like, actually, I remember there was I'll find a picture of the Fauci prayer candles, right? Did you see those before?
No,
like this was this was huge, actually. That I saw these people, they had here's the image right here. Like, people, like, these things were selling like crazy. Like Dr. Fauci saint celebrity prayer candle. So it's like,
wow,
like that right there, like this right here is, in my opinion, the epitome of pharmakeia. It is poisoning, it is medicine, poisoning, and idolatry. And I think that's what it is it's gotten us into this place where, and I think a lot less now, as we've seen that distrust, similar to distrust in mainstream media, distrust in the pharmaceutical industrial complex is plummeted in America. But everyone would just say, well, whatever my doctor says, and that has been one of the great deceptions. So when the doctor comes out and says, hey, that little skin tag, it could be cancerous, let's do a biopsy, which we found that biopsies actually end up releasing more cancer into the body,
yeah,
right? Then they're saying, okay, so the doctor tells you this, and then they demonize the sun, which is God's creation that was, to give, like, literally is like day one, let there be light, right? It's the most foundational thing in this cosmos. It's wild to piece this all together.
Yeah. Wow. Yes, exactly. That's surprising. I didn't know about that prayer candle. it's interesting. These things will go together, and you look at the ingredient list on a vaccine and you realize, well, why did they have to put.
Folks, we all see it. Everything's getting more expensive. We're paying 2, 3, 4 times what things cost just a few years ago. And we know they're lying. 3% inflation, really? Think about it. Why are they telling us to keep our hard-earned money in the banks and stock market while they're rushing to buy gold and silver? That's right. Governments and central banks around the world are dumping the dollar and scrambling to buy gold and silver right now. These are smart people. They see the signs just like you do. They know the crash is coming. The dollar has lost more than half its value in the last 5 years, and our national debt's increasing $1 trillion every 100 days. It can't go on like this. Even Bank of America's warning about a dollar collapse. And if they're right, it's only a matter of time before our savings, our IRAs, and our 401ks could be wiped out. Look, right now, it's still easy to buy gold and silver, but in the future, it may not be. Experts are saying that prices will keep surging, and UBS says that gold could even go up to $5,000 an ounce. Noble Gold's phones have been ringing off the hook because the folks who get it aren't wasting time. Now, I can't tell you what to do with your hard-earned money, but I can tell you that even if just some of your savings are in gold and silver, you can rest assured that money is safe. So call Noble Gold and protect your wealth today. It's better to be 6 months early than 1 day late. So call Noble Gold today at 626-654-1906 or visit goldwithseth.com and set up your free wealth consultation. The phone number and the websites are also in the show's description.
Aborted fetal cells from various parts of the unborn baby's body. Why did they have to put these this blood from all these different animals? And it starts to look like a witch's cauldron, and you realize that it's a mask, and it's disguising itself as science, because then you realize that none of them are proven scientifically. It avoids that process. It has a garb of that, and people are so stuck in the narrative, even people researching it are so far downstream, they actually think that there's some efficacy in it. And then but it all comes back to these views, and that's why unplug from that system. Look at God's system that's healing. And as we talk about things that are therapeutic against those things that are harmful, they don't harm the body, and they help to harness the innate systems. They don't operate off the systems of poisoning. They operate off the systems of life. And I think of like one of the amazing studies on lymphoma, and I was because this is relevant, because you think about the fact that, okay, we just looked at Banana Boat and groups like this, and so everyone knows that brand, and that was again by Johnson & Johnson. It was recalled because of this benzene, this known carcinogen, and so many others. And so they're causing different types of cancers. A carcinogen is a product that causes or an effect, meaning that it causes cancer. Then you look at, okay, well, what's the remedy for these things? And it's funny that the remedy happens to be actually something that is with in connection to the sun. And I think of some of these blockbuster studies, and you can pull up this one that we've investigated some of these cases before, but this one now really has a spotlight on it. If you look at there's a slide 93 on this case on lymphoma on the first slide deck I gave you. And I'll reference this because what they did, and Seth, if you'd like to talk about some of these remedies, if you're interested in having your audience go into the solution to this, because there's a lot of your audience will be off some of these sunscreens, but the aftermath of these problems and the continual exposure to toxins, and that then becomes an interesting thing for people.
So let me pull up slide 93 here. Let's see.
Yeah.
Sorry, 1 second. Let's get this.
No worries. But yeah, would you agree, Seth, to put forward the solutions for people then is really where we need to take people, because we're in a world where people are more aware of the problems now, but they still don't know how to get better.
Well, exactly, because looking at just what I'll come back to this slide in 1 second here, but looking at what they're talking about, how sunscreen is absorbed into the skin. This is something that didn't hit me till sometime in my adulthood of realizing that our skin it's the largest organ, right? And that it actually it absorbs what's on it. So I remember, back when I was living in Ohio, we were on where we lived, we were on town water. And the water was so chlorinated that you took a shower and it smelled like a swimming pool. Now we ended up we put filters on our showers and we ended up digging a well, so we had well water instead. But people don't realize that even showering in city water, your skin is, even if you don't drink it, like everyone's like, oh, I use a Berkey filter, I drink clean water. Well, it's like, what are you showering in, right? Because your skin is absorbing all that chlorine. So if you take a bath in those chemicals, whether it's fluoride or chlorine or anything else they're putting in, it's all going into your body. And so even you made a good point. Let's just say someone stopped wearing, chemical sunscreen 5 years ago. Well, if they spent the first 30 years of their, life wearing these chemical sunscreens, all those chemicals, I mean, I'm sure a lot of them, though they may have been detoxed and removed, but a lot of them are still sitting inside of your body. I mean, is that a correct understanding?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That buildup, you look at the environmental working group study on pregnant women that have obviously exposure to toxins going to the baby. So they want to see how many. They only tested 400. How many are there? Well, 40,000, 100,000 that they could test for, let's say. But they tested 400. They found 287 of those in the umbilical cord, meaning that it was going directly to the baby. And of those, 180 were proven to cause cancer, birth defects, brain deformations. And so that wasn't just the exposure that woman got, while she was, pregnant with the baby. This was a lifetime of toxins. And so it is true that one, your body can detoxify and you will remove toxins, but what's happening is that there are blockages to those detoxification pathways. One of them is methylation, the MTHFR gene mutation, which is common, I believe, because of vaccines, is the reason why this has become common. I have that, for example, I have that methylation issue, and so then I need to support my body in its detoxification. But everyone does, and that's the reality. And so you'll have a buildup, and it's just about undoing that damage. But it's not a laborious process, and it's something that just comes with really loving yourself and supplying your body with what it needs and stopping the toxic exposure. Because some of it, a lot of these things start getting turned around with stopping the toxic exposure, and then when you then go that extra leg and you give your body what it's needing and feed it with those missing nutrients, and then take agents that are used for detoxification, now you start like looking and feeling like a superhuman.
Yeah, it's a good point too, that it's a two-part, kind of two-prong attack, right? Stop the poisons coming into your body, get rid of the poisons that are already in your body. And the thing is, you can only stop so many poisons from going into your body. If you walk outside, you're breathing chemtrail air, unless you live, up in like the Himalayan mountains or something like that. Most of this earth, unfortunately, it seems, when I've asked people, hey, where are you at? Are you seeing chemtrails? People are like, oh yeah, I'm in Ireland, I'm in Australia, I'm in Mexico, I'm in South America. People all over the world are seeing these things. So it's really difficult to fully stop these chemicals coming in. Obviously, you're not eating processed food, not using over-the-counter sunscreen. There's a lot of things that we can do, but the other side of that though is actually detoxing, right? Heavy metal detoxing, all these other kinds of detoxing as well. And so, getting into like detoxing and looking at both red light, but also the sun. So the sun, I believe, is as that post mentioned, how it generates, it causes your body to generate vitamin D, and vitamin D naturally is helps combat cancer. Makes sense. So what role? Talk to us about the sun and how the sun affects the body, and then how the sun relates to red light therapy. Because for a lot of people, they can't wait for the sun to come out at the right time and go lay naked in their backyard and absorb the sun's rays. Like maybe some of us can, but for a lot of folks, they might be off at work during the peak hours of the sun. So I'll kind of hand it back over to you to start getting into like the
Yeah,
details of the sun, its function, and how it affects the human body.
absolutely. So uh, it's interesting that one, the sun is healing, and it is because it emits electromagnetic waves and these frequencies that you can see with the visible eye. So when you see the sun and you see a red tint at a sunrise or a sunset, it means that it is in those 600 up to 700 nanometer wavelength, which means it's penetrating around 6 to 7 millimeters, or 600 to 700 nanometers. And there is a really amazing aspect to this where it goes deeper than that. And it's because of the fact that our chromosomes, when they have these wavelengths hit them, they are like tuning forks. And so if you see a chromosome together, you'll see something that looks a little like this, and they look like two tuning forks stuck together. When one reverberates at a certain frequency, the other one starts doing that as well. And so then that chain reaction carries out throughout the body. So it's signaling the whole body, which is fascinating to activate all different types of processes in the body. The most important one for people to understand is it's pertaining to oxygen. So when these electromagnetic waves come into the body, then your body produces reactive oxygen species, which one of which is called singlet oxygen, which is SINGLET, singlet oxygen, which is highly reactive. And what this does is it causes apoptosis in unhealthy cells. And so this is where you have a turnover of senescent cells that are not maturing. They're not normal, healthy cells, and they actually need to get cleared out, but they're missing those essential factors they need to be able to do that.
So here's a,
So yeah, there you go,
singlet
singlet
oxygen. It says
oxygen.
singlet oxygen is an excited state of oxygen O2 that is produced through various processes such as photochemical, thermochemical, or enzymatic activation. It is a highly reactive oxidant that can readily oxidize cellular components and is occasionally present in biological systems. And it gets into cytochrome P450 function and pharmaceutical roles in inflammation and cancer. So interesting.
Yes, exactly. And so this is in itself naturally fluorescent. And so the body then produces these mini explosions, really. The apoptosis, if you saw this happen under a microscope in the body, it would be a fascinating process. And if you saw it in a military setting, you'd see lasers, singlet oxygen lasers shoot missiles out of the sky, and that's been done. So highly powerful, but not harmful. And that's part of the reason why, with what I was going to share before in the lymphoma, it makes sense why people get such dramatic results using red light therapy. And the difference here is that when you have the rays of the sun, you are often technically in some setting for a lot of people in the world, and it does matter where you are on the equator and different things like this and the intensity of that sun, but even for everyone, there is an aspect where the concentration of that light and your ability to be so close to it is it's the closer you are in this case, the more therapeutic. And that's why people are getting the results, which we're about to explain in some of these slides in such record periods of time.
Yeah, so I'll pull this slide now and getting into lymphoma because also and I want to look. I know you have some information on skin cancer as well, because what I'm thinking about
Yes,
is
and
that
this relates to skin cancer, and this is why I brought up, because if it's
perfect.
cutaneous lymphoma, it's related to the skin, and you'll see this on the next slide. See the cutaneous follicle center, and I can show you some before and after images as well from these clinical studies. Yeah, so I mean, this one is a slam dunk, and I'll explain this mechanism of using photosensitizers because almost everyone that understands red light doesn't understand even what a photosensitizer or photoabsorber is, because they were used in these studies. So think about sunscreen in reverse, where sunscreen is blocking those healing rays. Think about something that did the opposite, where it enhanced the effects of the sunlight in your body. Why would you not take that in conjunction if you were wanting to have better health, if you really believe that those rays were so healing for the body, producing these reactive oxygen species, which are vital for life? Yeah. So, and you'll see this in this study.
So okay, so just kind of navigate me through this.
Yeah, absolutely. So here you had a 2006 pilot study. So disclaimer here is that there is only three patients in a pilot study, and that's why it's a pilot study. The reason why a study like this is conducted because it's still highly statistically relevant, especially because of the finding, which I'll explain to you. I'm going to show you this. I'll have a look at the finding there, and then I'll work backwards. So in the bold there, all patients achieved complete remission after up to 2 photodynamic sessions with no significant side effects or pain. Go to the next slide and look at this here. Let's see. Does that, let me pull that up. Go. maybe go back up. And if you go across, there it is. Go, no, go down. Okay, I think if you hit the side arrow, yes, it's the next one. It should be the next one under that. And which is interesting, it's jumping to that. Okay, so in this, it showed that all patients had achieved a complete remission of symptoms, or not just symptoms, but it was a complete absence of, in this case, cutaneous B-cell lymphoma. Yeah, it was that one in between. Notice how we're getting just over it. It's literally, but I think if you hit the side
Oh,
arrow instead, if you maximize it and hit the side arrow, then you won't miss it. That's it there.
oh, that's
Yeah, that's
odd.
it
I'll
there.
just do it this way then.
Yeah, no worries. So see how a 630 nanometer wavelength light emitted by a diode lamp, which is a light emitting diode LED, but it's different to the ones that are in the homes because it doesn't flicker. It's so high quality. And then in the highlighted section that I highlighted there, all the treated patients had complete remission, defined as a clinical and histologic complete absence of CBCL, which is cutaneous B-cell lymphoma. And cutaneous is related then to skin. So melanomas are not always related to the skin, but cutaneous is related then to the skin. So that's an example of how something that can be caused by, in this case, toxins and chemicals put on the skin is causing this issue, yet the rays of light that are, in this case, modeling the sun, a 630 nanometer wavelength is modeling like a sunrise and a sunset. But in this case, the patients in a maximum of 2 sessions in a 1-week interval, all achieved a complete remission, and which is shocking. This blew my mind. After I saw this, I started to think about cancer differently, because I'd always thought about it being like, a couple years, at least 6 months, but I never realized that there were certain off switches like this that are activated through these very powerful processes, like singlet oxygen, because this is then being produced, and they were using, in this case, a photosensitizer called aminoleuvolinic acid. There's others that are really easy to access, like methylene blue and curcumin and berberine and green tea. So these will help the absorption of that light into the cells. Chlorophyll, and there's a derivative or an extract called chlorin E6, and they're used for everything from lung cancer to any type of cancer, because it's helping the absorption of light into the cells and helping those processes, the oxygen, the reactive oxygen species, etc.
Interesting. Okay. Okay. And so, gosh, one other thing that it makes me think about is that, there's obviously, there's a lot of, women that are listening to this show that, even like my own mother, right, who still wears makeup, right? It's common, especially I think for the generation, of like my mom's, say people that are in their 50s, 60s, 70s, et cetera, that it was much more common for, women every day that, they put their makeup on and they go about their day, whether it's, going into the office or whatnot. But it makes you think, I wonder like if the sunscreen is full of these cancer causing substances, that how much of it is caused by makeup as well.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's like the same things. It's the same companies making the same products. And so even if someone's like, I don't wear sunscreen, it's like, well, what kind of makeup are you wearing? So again, it just gets into the detoxing effect of this. And so, as we talked about earlier, there's 2 things. One, right, remove toxins coming in and then pull the toxins out. So, there's all kinds of different ways that people are doing, detoxes, heavy metal, et cetera. So how it kind of, in terms of how you say red light specifically or sunlight, but say red light specifically, how does that affect the detoxification? And like, say someone is concerned that maybe that they have, as that woman talked about in the TikTok video I showed, they have worn a lot of makeup, they have damaged their skin, making them say more susceptible to kind of cancers or bad things happening on the skin. What is this? How do they repair that? How do they detox and repair what's been damaged over the past many decades through chemical laden, face creams and makeup and, foundation, et cetera?
Yeah, it's a great question, Seth. And the great news in regard to that is, as you give the skin what it needs, then you get all those youthful, beautiful characteristics that people look for. And that's why most people actually know about red light for those aesthetic benefits. And it's being used as a substitute for Botox, as it's being used as a substitute for liposuction, which is fascinating. And it's better than liposuction in many cases in terms of its immediate effects, because if you've got swelling in your body, that is actually a toxic reaction that is in connection to all different types of processes that aren't firing properly, like swelling, edema, then you'll notice that the red light therapy, people even in single sittings, and a lot of people are advertising them in these ways, like at chiropractic clinics, etc., that they're losing inches in even in their first sitting, which is shocking, but it is happening for people, and it is heavily studied. And so you can look up liposuction and red light. But these cosmetic benefits and are amazing, because it is using a detoxifying process, but it's not through the way people typically think about detox. And most people, when they think about detox, they're taking laxatives, and it's and even a laxative, generally speaking, is not going to be very beneficial. It's just kind of make you a bit uncomfortable, and and people are just kind of thinking about clearing out their colon, and that's a good start. And so the psyllium husk and bentonite clay and zeolites, and even things to chelate metals. There's lots of great things out there, even an EDTA, and these are good, but it's only one aspect of how your body detoxifies. And it's like, if you look at something like the studies that we just mentioned, it was clearly detoxifying in that it was most people that are kind of in the know and research things like what we're talking about understand that all different types of diseases are really due to toxic buildup. And so somehow this worked in regard to helping with a toxic issue in the body. And how did it do it? And so when you deal with oxygen, you're dealing with the best detoxification systems imaginable, because oxygen is the key to a lot of these processes, because your body needs oxygen more than it needs anything else, for starters. I mean, how long could you live without food? Maybe
40 days.
maybe yeah.
Longer.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. A couple of my friends just did some 40-day fasts, right? So that was pretty impressive. But there's a quite a long period of time you can live without food, and there's then shorter time period you can live without water. And then, which would be maybe what, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days? How long could you live without oxygen?
2 to 3 minutes. I mean,
Yeah.
or maybe a little bit
worked up to
longer,
it.
but you start getting into the brain damage after a certain point.
There you go. And this is where, if you understand this part of the process, then your body knows how to clear toxins, but it lacks the things that it needs to do those activities.
I see.
And this is then deeply connected to the electrical systems as well, with electrons. Electrons are part of this process. And so, okay, firstly, think about like a red light, and I'll give an example. Like, I mean, there we go. We got some red light. So this is electromagnetic waves that are hitting me. And these electromagnetic waves are producing the oxygen in the body, and the reactive oxygen species that are highly reactive, and they're going of their own accord to issues in the body. So that's all an intelligent system. So they're going to be like homing missiles to those issues that exist in the body. And so then they can then destroy that issue. Whereas if I'm taking something that's just kind of unilaterally trying to kind of clear out the gut, well, then how do I know it's getting to the cells? And so light should be the first place people look, oxygen and light. And
I see.
yeah.
I see. So it's almost like, which you look pretty cool with that red light. I wish I could
yeah.
wheel mine into the studio and do the same thing. So
There you go.
So basically, it's
I'm
like
gonna
you
keep
think
the
about
infrared on.
you think about detoxing as this thing where it's like, okay, I'm gonna drink this magical detox drink, which is gonna pull out all the bad things in my body, and I'm gonna pee them out, or I'm gonna poop them out, or I'm gonna sweat them out, right? But was what you're saying? Of course, those things can be effective. But if I understand what you're saying, is that it's all about oxygen, which is why I'm assuming why like peroxide is such a powerful healing agent, because it affects the oxygenation. Chlorine dioxide, it's all about oxygen, right? And so what I'm understanding with this is that actually that red light, in the right kind of red light, that what it does is it activates, it basically like ramps up the levels of oxygen, which at a cellular level then becomes a key to, it's like instead of saying doing a detox where you're like, I've done liver cleanses before, I've done parasite cleanses before, but they're mostly like oral, and it deals with your gut and your kind of your, say, gallbladder, your liver, these systems, but in a much more kind of bigger picture way, like almost like cleaning out your
Yes.
toilet with like a brush. It's like you're scraping off the bad stuff and getting rid of it. Whereas the oxygen, it's almost like it's going in at the cellular level and giving your body and each cell what it needs to detox at the cellular level. Is that the right
Yes. Yeah.
understanding?
Exactly. Because it's basically you can do everything with voltage, but you can do nothing without it. And oxygen and electrons pertain to voltage in the body and electricity. And you are a battery. Your body operates off all these systems without you realizing. It's part of the reason why that when the lights are out and you got your sheets on you and you're moving them around, everything's zapping, but
Yeah.
it's coming off you. And you think, okay, I didn't really think of myself as an electromagnetic being, but I certainly am. It just is that way. And so then what you're doing is you're fueling the body with what it needs. And so the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, and it needs that charge. It needs to get charged up. And then it's the production then of something called ATP, which is adenosine triphosphate. And again, you look at the word triphosphate, phosphorus. This is a fluorescent substance, and your body produces these fluorescent substances. You can't see them; they're happening inside your body, but they're the keys that are needed for energy production. And that energy production then is once the body has voltage, then it can do whatever it needs to do, and it targets and highlights the problem with disease in the body, and just deals with this problem without us having to kind of have to work it all out. And because it's kind of, there's lots of words here. There's caspase 3, which is a death enzyme that's activated, which is causing, and again, the apoptosis, programmed cell death of unhealthy cells. And a lot of people, if you're having any issues, you're just not having a turnover of the unhealthy cells. And so your unhealthy cells are getting all this energy to go nowhere, and then you're sluggish and tired, whereas that needs to get turned over. Those need to go through that apoptosis, that programmed cell death, turnover, and then the good cells need what they need, like that fertilizer for that soil. In this case, light is arguably, there's no question to it, light is the best thing for stem cell regeneration. And particularly the wavelengths that have been proven for that are the 660, or the red are specifically good for that. And then as well, you would look at, what about the stem cells that are inside the bones? And then that would go into the near infrared, which would be in the 810 frequencies and so forth. And if you can see there on like around slide 44, you'll see all the different types of wavelengths that go in and penetrate and signal these different processes in the body. You'll see that also on slide 39, where you're going to hit the epidermis at 480, and then at 1060 all the way through the interior tissues and through the bone.
This starts to make sense, because we've looked at these slides before, and I kind of understood it. But whenever you see something, when someone says, "Hey, if you take this magical drink, like, hey, here's a chaga mushroom drink," and they say it's going to fix like 1,000 different things in the body, it's like we're used to more singular treatments. Like if you have a headache, you take Advil. If you've got a fever, you take Tylenol. That's kind of how we're trained to think. But it makes sense, because I'm looking at these and thinking, gosh, okay, so red light, it's like, okay, so it's like weight loss, fat burning, cellulite reduction, metabolism boosting, anti-aging, acne, scars, rosacea, hair growth, sun damage, wrinkle, fine lines, droopy eyelids, under eye circles. And these are just some of the more surface things: pain relief, wound healing, injury healing, muscle building, athletic performance, mental stamina, continuing asthma, depression, tinnitus, arthritis, multiple sclerosis, stem cell regeneration, Parkinson's, hypertension, liver function, fertility and sperm mobility. There's a good one for repopulating the earth. Herpes, cold sores. I mean, it's crazy, but it now makes sense that the reason why this one thing hits all these areas is because you're giving the cells at a fundamental level the tools that your cells need to improve and to heal themselves and to detoxify. So now it's really clicking for me. Is that
Yeah.
is that
No,
right?
you got it, man. Yeah, it's so right. It's so right. And then to illustrate your point there, look at slide 97 and some of these things we talked about. Now, when you understand these principles, and you're getting all jazzed up because it's so exciting. And you think about what's the two big issues that women would have with their with the breast. Well, one would be like right next to they're using deodorants that have aluminum, other endocrine disrupting chemicals. So all around that area where the body's supposed to detoxify, it's getting plugged up. And then two, most women I know don't want to go sunbathing topless, and that's fair enough because public areas, it's not really appropriate, etc. I'm not a nudist, so it's not getting what it needs. So the breasts aren't getting the sunlight they need, and then two, they're not getting they're getting all the toxins that they don't need. And then now, okay, then let's see what happens if we put light against, in this case, the breast. And in this study, which we've talked about, but the 4 different red light wavelengths, 630, 660, 730, and 615 were used in the investigation. But it was the wavelength of 660 that was able to stop cell proliferation after 24 hours by 40%. And the next slide shows that directly from the clinical study, which is published on PubMed. And that's it there. And you'll see there, this is for both triple negative and non-triple negative breast cancer. And then you see that it's been shown by the MTT assay that at 24-hour post-exposure time point, meaning it was irradiated with the red light. Now you've got a positive association with irradiance or being irradiated because it's just red light. It's been proven as this arguably one of the safest possible things anyone could do. But then after that point, and it was using LED lights, which is light emitting diodes at the wavelength of 660. And this was the nanometer wavelength that possessed anti-proliferative effects against both cell lines with 40% reduction in cell viability. So when those cells got what they needed, they responded to the problem without anyone having to be some genius. And it was just God's creation interfacing with that body that he designed. So
incredible. So getting into, as we're wrapping out, so obviously people are thinking, okay, red light therapy, is this something on Amazon, or is it like, where do I find these? There's, like most things, there's a massive, variety of, quality and everything. But I can tell you that actually, so one of your systems, my wife and I ended up getting it. So what we're doing is we're trying to build out, just in our own house, like a little kind of mini spa. Right. And it's funny because, I ordered one of your, the bigger red light panels. Right. And I was like, oh, this is like medical grade. I mean, it was like metal, like it wasn't some plastic thing on Amazon. It was serious. But we're setting it up. But the funny thing is a couple of weeks ago, my wife had just signed up. One of our friends he just started a new business, and it's more of like a health and healing type house, right? Where you go in, they've got red light therapy, they've got oxygen therapy, like Tesla coil stuff, saunas, etc. And I think she was signing up, it was like $300 a month for just like unlimited access to use this kind of like day spa type thing. And I was like, Kate, like, let's just build this at our house. Right. Like we got, actually, I also got through you a cold plunge. Right. So we got one of your cold plunges. So what we're doing is actually we're building our own little mini health spa that, like, we can do this stuff every day. After you get out of the shower, she can go do red light therapy for 10 minutes. Or, I can go do sauna and then cold plunge and then red light therapy and then cold plunge and then shower. So it's pretty incredible because it's, obviously there's a setup cost to this stuff, but the amazing thing is once you have it, it's like you literally have, you can build out your own health spa, but it's not like a spa for relaxing with Zen music and getting massages and stuff. It's actually about, like, it's very real treatments. This isn't some woo-woo stuff. Like, this is very proactive. These are very proactive treatments for, like preventing cancers and all kinds of things. So walk us through, if someone, I know that you are obviously, you have a company that deals directly with red lights. You're an absolute expert on it. So if someone wants to learn more about this or they have questions, what do they do?
Absolutely. So one thing you want to do when you're shopping for something like this, because it's one thing to learn the studies and get educated and get like super excited. And it's another thing to actually do it, because when you do it, then you're actually getting the benefits, right? So it goes without saying, but just, seeing it and doing it are two different things. And so I really do encourage people to do this, because that's the only way, to me, that you can harness, obviously, the benefits we're talking about. But you want to look for irradiance levels, and you want to look for wavelengths, because we just talked about different wavelengths. But if those wavelengths that are proven in these studies aren't in the device that you're using, then the confidence level, maybe is not so high there. It may work, it may not work, but you want something that's proven, in my view, and then you want something that lasts a long time as well, because then it's one and done. And so in the case of what we're doing with My Red Light, so if people are interested, obviously you can see Seth and I were just, our hearts are for educating people, getting you the knowledge and the truth, and giving you those keys and tools and that power. And then what I did with the company Red Life, which is myredlight.com, and people can look up this. And we've done something really special for your audience, Seth, where you can use the code Seth10 or Seth. We'll have both active, but Seth10, Seth, you use this code and you'll get an additional 10% off. So we just want to reward and celebrate the patriots here that follow you guys, follow you here, Seth. But what you're looking for is a device that has the irradiance level. In this case, it's 205 milliwatts per centimeter squared at 3 inches. And so that also gives you an indication. If you're 3 inches to 6 inches away, you're really in that hot zone of where it's extremely therapeutic. And then you've got, anyone can play as well, because you've got belts that you can get started with. And I've seen people with chronic pain in their back that wasn't solved by the chiropractor and all these other treatments. You can use a belt, you can use the portable devices. And then these are the things that we've found to be so effective. And so what we did as well with the full body panel, which I can even show you, the one that I got here, which I'm shining against myself. I've got actually the near infrared, so you can see a little tint on me. But yes, as you can see there in that slide, you've got the different wavelengths. So it's the 480, 630, 660, 850, and then 940, 980, and 1060. So the 8 different wavelengths, which to me is amazing, because they didn't exist. So we had to do all the research, and it's FDA class 2 certified. We had to do all this customized, and I had my team of researchers and PhDs work together on this after the research that we uncovered, and to release something that would truly work and give people the results. And one of the things that we did in that as well was we put the 480, so it's blue light. And somebody would say, yeah, but blue light's bad, right? But it's high flicker sources of blue light that they're extremely harmful. But if you see a beautiful rainbow, don't run away from it, because it's got blue light in it. That blue light in that rainbow is extremely helpful for circadian rhythm. It's extremely helpful for neonatal care, babies in the womb, acne, scars, etc. And so, and then what we did as well, just to make it easy for people, was that we gave people the opportunity to use payment plans. So that $300 a month could be more like $50 a month. And then you've got a device in your home, and then you've owned it now. And then you compare that. You'd pay that $50, that $70, $20, whatever it is a month, because you've got different options and you can space out those payments. But you'd be paying that anyway for any other treatment, any other supplement, but then you own it for the rest of your life. And it's got the 100,000 hours of rated lifespan, which is a whole lifetime. Even if a whole family and all the cousins and aunts and uncles are using it, it's still a whole lifetime, and covering it with a 60-day money-back guarantee and a 3-year warranty. So these were the things, so that people could try it to see if they got the benefits, and send it back with no questions asked or any restocking fee. It's all like a gift to the person.
And so show us yours, actually, because I just plugged mine in last night. Literally, I finally got around to it, because we've got, among other things, I've got a 9-month-old baby that thinks that 3 a.m. is party time. So we're just like, we're never getting a proper sleep schedule. And so I finally got it set up, and I was like blown away. But it's funny though, because I was like, oh, there's blue lights in this thing too. And Kate was like, well, aren't blue lights bad? And I was like, I'm going to ask Jonathan, because I have no idea. So this is like, these are like, my impression when I set it up was like, man, this thing could be in a doctor's office. It's metal, it's heavy. Okay, so that's the actual.
It is medical grade, and then you can see there it is a full body panel there. Let's see, just making sure there we go. And then that stand, and I apologize, I think you're getting a little challenge there. that stand is actually can be used. It's a really sturdy stand, right? You probably like, you look at a lot of the other groups that have these things, and they're pretty flimsy stands. And with children, I have massive fear because I've had one before, and I was thinking, man, if this falls on my kid, this is not going to be good for anyone's health. So a stand that won't let it fall down and that you could put over your body lying down, and then getting like 3 inches away. But then people see me do it without eye goggles, which it comes with the safety eye goggles. But the thing with the eye goggles as well is that you can be using it for the 3 minutes once a week without the goggles to get an improvement of eyesight, or 1 minute 3 times a week. And even one of our colleagues, David Rodriguez, he just told me that his eyesight had a massive improvement. He went from having to nap an hour and a half a day to 0 naps and having tons of energy. And normally he says, like, I don't have an excuse to get off air right now because normally I got a really sore back, but I don't have that anymore. But the thing that touched me the most was with his mother, who has dementia. And he said her cognition has improved so dramatically, and it's only been like 3 weeks. And I'm not saying that everyone is going to have that same experience, but it certainly happened for him. And it was awesome to see it happen for everyone in that family that used it. And the other one was that they couldn't explain was her swelling in her body, the edema. The doctors couldn't explain why she had such a reduction in swelling. And if you understand the mechanical processes or the biological processes in the body, of course it makes sense. Of course there would be a reduction in swelling. How could it not? It's not that it works for some people and doesn't work for others. It works. It's just a question of consistency. The Birmingham University studies showed only a minute of exposure a day showed that it was neuroprotective and was helpful. In this case, it was a rat injury model, but was regenerative of the spine in this rat injury model, even with a minute of exposure. So some people are like, you're busy. You had it was hard for you to find the time to even set it up, but you did. And now, if you literally just commit to 5 minutes a day, and then you can kind of work up to that. But you could do 30 minutes a day. You could even do 30 minutes twice a day if you want to push it to the limit. But man, this is all about just giving people their health back. And there's nothing better. I could tell you that people like David, who's doing a bunch of supplements, all different things, so many people like that, and myself, and if there's one thing, the last thing you could ever take away from me when it came to my health regimen, it would just be the red light. I'd just say, look, if there's one thing I could do, it'd be that. And you've seen the studies, it makes sense. And then if you take a couple of different things to activate that light, it's going to activate anyway. Some of those studies I showed you used sensitizers, others didn't. And there's the prostate cancer study we talked about before. It was like 413 participants, and 49% went into remission. And the reason why it wasn't higher, to me, from my research, is simply because those other chemicals that they're getting in those treatments, they're getting all the chemicals they're getting all the chemotherapy. That's going to drop the success of that. Whereas with the lymphoma study, because it was only a week, those other treatments didn't have the opportunity to take these people out in that time period. So you have to kind of look at why it wasn't a slam dunk, just like it was with the lymphoma study. But like the control group was 13.5%. So if you were battling with something like that, or you wanted to prevent it, you had a 4 times greater likelihood if you had a red light. And so, but it cost nothing in comparison to the other things. Like it's such a minimal investment. Like a $20 supplement every month for the next year is going to cost you $250. Then you times that by the next 4 years, you're at $1,000. And then if you're at if you've got a partner, then you're at $2,000. If you've got a family of 4 like me, now you're at $4,000. And now for the next that's it only 4 years, you times that by another 10 years, and you start realizing this is costing me tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars over time. Why don't I save some money and actually reinvest in the right areas, and then save myself a ton of money? And I just want to save people from all those headaches and heartaches. Because the other clinics that I see people rush to, because I'm helping to treat some high profile people, and they all kind of want to go to these expensive centers, and they get me to advise on their cases, and some of these world leading holistic cancer therapy centers, $40,000 to $60,000 for 3 weeks. So, and what you're doing in your home, Seth, that's about being ahead. And you're like Joseph in Egypt, where he says, the dream means this. We need to store grain for 7 years because there's going to be 7 years of famine. And if somebody is listening and they're not thinking like that, then you're preparing for famine instead of preparing for abundance and prosperity. And then they fed the nations, and they even fed his brothers that betrayed him.
Yeah, you're so spot on, and that's the key. Like, why do I have a lot of food stored, right? Why do I have all these things? Because I'm preparing, and to me, this is a way of preparing. Because my brother, we talked about before, who unfortunately I wasn't aware of these things. He died of a non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. His medical bill, right? It was paid for, by Medicare, I think at that time. But anyway, his medical bill is $1.5 million was his medical bill, right? He was in the hospital for 9 months. He had out of hospital care. I mean, that's just like, you want to talk about expense? Like, that's insane. So anyway, so Jonathan, again, pulling up myredlight.com, promo code Seth, SETH, gets you 10% off. There's payment plans. So yeah, it's like, again, I will never recommend something that I don't personally have or personally use, right? I recommend gold and silver. Like, that's right. I'm not buying stocks. I'm not buying, Nvidia stocks. I'm buying, if I have extra money, I'm buying some silver, right? Same thing. Like for health, eyesight, my family's health, my wife, she's had a couple of children. She's into her 40s now. This is the perfect time for her to start being more proactive with these kinds of treatments, myself as well. So anyway, myredlight.com. There's a bunch of different packages. There's really inexpensive ones. There's little belts you can even get that will do a lot for you. You have the bigger packages. There's hats for hair loss. I mean, everything. So again, Jonathan, I feel like that we should be doing this way more often, and I do want to. I think that we're planning on doing some sort of webinar soon where we sit down together and do like a very in-depth, because I'm just like, I do these interviews with you and I answer a lot of questions, but I've got twice the amount of questions afterwards as I had coming in. So we'll have to do some more stuff together. But again, thank you so much, man, for doing what you're doing. It's such a pleasure speaking with you. And I just hope to keep doing this together with you and educating people and fundamentally make America healthy again, right?
That's amazing. No, thank you, Seth. Thank you for what you're doing. I love the way your mind works and how you ask all the right questions and you think about the processes, and you're just a student of God, of the mystery of the universe that He's made, and I appreciate that, and I want everyone to catch that let's say virus, if you will, of that inquisitive spirit that you have, because it causes you then to understand what you're doing. And then when you're praying for your health, you're also praying intelligently because you understand these mechanisms. You don't have to understand it perfectly, but you're just saying, God, like, help me with these things and lead me to the right things that are going to help me. And so, yeah, that's great. And we've got so many different options and opportunities for people to grab. And I think about my dad when we were trying everything to try to, save his knees, because, that can happen when, you got a dad in his early 70s. And so, like, devices that go right around your knee, or the belt that can go around that affected area, so that you get that red light on there. You understand the science. And so, and then anyone can play at that level, or a hat to, we've got so many reports of people, their hair loss stopping and then their hair growing healthy and strong. And these are things that really give people confidence. The skin, and you save yourself from the wanting to go get Botox. My wife has done that before. And so it's like, I need to give her the things which we've done that give her that vibrance that she's looking for. And then it's also helping her with her health at the same time. And so, yeah, it's a great tool, guys. And I appreciate Seth for, getting it to his followers, because we don't want to be like Taylor Swift, that requires their participant, or I don't want to say Taylor, but just any other artist, that they required all their guests to get a vaccine. So they're prepared to play to people while they were suffering. We want our audiences to be the healthiest possible, because otherwise, how do we feel good about what we're doing and our influence? So yeah, check it out, what we got there with the My Red Light. And we're looking forward to helping you and getting you all the results you need and deserve.
Fantastic, man. Well, thank you so much. It's always great speaking with you. Take care and God bless.
Thanks so much, Seth. Goodbye.
Folks, we are officially in the time of the year where eating becomes off balanced, way off balanced. Parties, holidays, family gatherings always mean more snacks, more sweets, and generally indulging in all the wrong foods. And when your eating habits get off balance, so can you. That's why I strongly recommend Balance of Nature's daily supplements. Their fruit and veggie supplements are sourced from whole fruit and vegetable ingredients, all the things you might be missing, and all the things you need to make up for being off balance during this eating season. Make sure you're getting more of a variety of fruit and vegetable ingredients at every step of the way with Balance of Nature. Start a trend toward better health today with my special startup offer. Whether you order online or call them direct, you must use the promo code SETH, that's SETH, to get 35% off plus free shipping and their money back guarantee. So, folks, call them today at 800-2468-751 and use discount code SETH to get your discount, or order online at balanceofnature.com. And again, use discount code SETH to get 35% off.